Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. I'm Dr. Benjamin Alter.
And I'm Dr. Susanna Alter, and we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
Thanks for being with us on this live episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. We are live in our plant-based and stress-free Facebook group on Thursday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, as we always are. And today, the topic of conversation on the podcast, I've got something stuck in my throat. It is plant-based on a budget, and really talking about how this way of eating, the optimal way that humans have the opportunity of fueling themselves, need not be expensive. In fact, the cheaper foods we eat, the healthier foods we eat. We're going to entertain this topic of conversation, which is largely misunderstood still in our world today. People hold the misbelief that eating a whole food plant-based diet has to be some expensive task. But we're going to debunk all of that in today's episode.
Yes, we are. Yes, and it's true. It's true that a whole food plant-based diet tends to involve a lot of fruits and vegetables. And I think that's why people think, oh, well, if I switch to that way of eating, it's like, gosh, organic produce, it's so expensive.
Well, when you're avoiding going to the meat counter, and dairy refrigerator and egg person, you're obviously cutting out all that stuff. Here, I've got something in my ear. You talk.
Okay, I'll talk. Yeah, but it's true. We also need to consider the foods that we aren't purchasing on a whole food plant-based diet. And you can get eggs and dairy for pretty cheap, but it does.
Hopefully not. Like if you're,
it's probably not good quality.
If you're getting the cheap eggs and dairy, you're killing yourself even faster, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So really what we're going to talk about today is that the healthiest whole food plant-based foods are really, inherently not that expensive. Yeah. And we actually have a few numbers to kind of exhibit this for all of you.
Cool. So yeah, obviously we're talking about eating plants. We're talking about eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. And we're talking about avoiding meat, dairy, fish, eggs, and processed foods. And obviously, when I think about meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, I think about, the more expensive foods. That is, if we're sourcing the higher quality, quote unquote, so to speak, foods. These foods take a lot more resources to create, literally. A lot more energy goes into the production and creation of these animal products when we're talking about feeding the animals to create the end products that go to the grocery store. So sometimes the animal products are subsidized in a way that leads them to be artificially lower in price, but still not as cheap, not as inexpensive as our real whole natural foods. When we're talking about really just price per calorie, so to speak, we could even break it down on that level. The other thing that people need to know about eating a whole food plant-based diet is that we're avoiding the center aisles of the grocery store. By and large, we're avoiding the packaged and processed foods. We're avoiding the things that are we like frozen fruits and vegetables, but we're avoiding the frozen dinner meals and the frozen burritos and the packaged kale chips and all of these foods that really do add up when we are, loading up the grocery cart.
And can I add,
Yeah.
and to that, when people switch to a whole food plant-based way of eating, what also tends to happen is that they do a lot more of their own cooking. They're not eating out as much because, let's face it, it's hard to find a good, wholesome, whole food plant-based meal at a lot of restaurants. So people tend to find that their restaurant bills drastically decrease or go away each month, and that certainly leaves room in the food budget as well.
Yeah, and obviously as restaurant bills go down, as grocery bills go down, our what's left in our pocket goes up, so we're able to enjoy our life more. And that's a good thing because you have enhanced health, enhanced energy, and you're going to have a life worth living that you're going to be wanting to spend your money elsewhere besides junk food and processed food and animal products.
Yes.
So let's get down to some nuts and bolts in terms of the eating a plant-based on a budget. Because I would say that, our way of eating is not the most low budget way of eating. We do like some, products and stuff that are totally unessential for a whole food plant-based diet. We like to source, mushroom powders to make our mushroom mocha drink in the morning. We source some kind of superfood powders, quote unquote, green powders and amla and acerola cherry and all of these kind of, I guess more exotic products that are fun and nutrient dense and definitely very healthy and health promoting. But absolutely not essential when we're talking about just the baseline, foundation, fundamental nuts and bolts of a whole food plant-based diet. So the fundamental bolts of a whole food plant-based diet are literally peasant foods. These are whole grains, legumes, potatoes. That is when we're talking about the most bang for your buck in terms of calories and also nutrients. We're talking about whole grains, legumes, and potatoes.
Right.
These are foods that are extremely healing, extremely health promoting, extremely inexpensive, extremely easy to prepare, and totally overlooked, and in some cases even kind of neglected and avoided because we're told that grains are bad. Grains cause diabetes and inflammation, and legumes have lectins and tear up your gut, and potatoes just turn into sugar automatically. But we know that is all baloney. We know that's garbage. There's no science to it. So whole grains, legumes, and potatoes are really kind of the caloric staples on a plant-based diet, on a budget or not on a budget. Those are our staples.
Right, definitely. So, yeah. Then, of course, we do want fruits and vegetables, right? And those are the items that could be more expensive, but not necessarily. There are a lot of fruits and vegetables that are always, very affordable. And the things that come to mind are like bananas, apples, oranges, broccoli, cabbage.
Cabbage is so cheap.
Cabbage is so cheap and it lasts for a long time.
And it is actually a superfood. It literally is a superfood. It's so high in glutamine and it's got the sulforaphane that's, really everyone loves that in the cruciferous vegetable family. It's anti-cancer. And purple cabbage. Oh my gosh. It's got the resveratrol and quercetin and anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, then also, carrots, beets, onions, these are all things that are not going to break the bank. And so when we're trying to really, really keep expenses down when it comes to food, you can also think about a few other tips with fresh produce that we'd recommend. One of them is to shop seasonally, because whatever fresh fruits or vegetables are in season, there's going to be a lower, there's more surplus, so there's lower demand, so the price is going to be lower automatically.
Totally.
So for example, getting your cucumbers in the summertime are way less expensive than getting cucumbers in the wintertime.
Yeah, and it's also better for your body, from an Ayurvedic perspective, right? Eating locally, seasonally. It's always something that we strive for. We're not perfect in that regard. We do like bananas, and bananas are kind of a staple year-round. But the fact is that along the equator, around the equator, bananas are abundant all the time. So yes, we're relying on bananas to be shipped, a ways, but they are inexpensive. And also they're not very. It's a low impact food in terms of the environment. There's not a lot of resources going into. Anyways, that's kind of taking the
We
conversation.
could have a whole podcast on bananas.
We could. There's a lot to be said about them.
Yeah, but our other tip for fresh produce is also to look at the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, and even print it out and bring it to the store with you, because all of those fresh fruits and vegetables on the Clean 15 list, they are the top 15 produce items that have been sprayed the least amount of, they've been.
They're clean. They're clean. They're clean.
My grammar was out the door on that one.
Sprayed the least, the cleanest.
Yes.
And on this list is things like avocados, which we know and love, and a lot of and avocados. If your diet is focused on avocados, it's going to be a higher budget food. But that being said, we can source our avocados conventionally ground, save a little bit of money, maybe a quarter or 50 cents per avocado or something like that.
Same with melons, cantaloupe, and honeydew. Same with the brassicas like cauliflower and broccoli. Those are on the Clean 15. And so is even corn on the cob.
Yeah, sweet corn.
Yeah, sweet corn. So these are some, great. When it's summertime, we'll always get those foods, conventionally, because
not always, but if they're at the store, we'll just look at what looks better, what the prices are. When we go to the store, this is really what it comes down to. We're always stocking up on our staples. We're always stocking up on whole grains, legumes, and potatoes. And a tip on that is sourcing them in bulk. Maybe even going to the supplier and getting a 20-pound bag of beans, which we honestly maybe we should start considering doing.
Yeah.
So being stocked on those staples, and then when we go to the store, we look at the produce section and what is on sale, what looks good, what is vibrant, what's calling our names, and we're just loading up the cart with colorful fruits and vegetables, and then on top of our staples. And then, the specialty item category, whether it's coconut aminos is kind of a staple in some sense in our refrigerator, some hot sauces, maybe a bottle of kombucha, these things that slowly start to add up in the cart. They're not required for a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet. They're absolutely not required. Some of them, make things more tasty and exciting, but it's not like if you don't have hot sauce in your fridge, or if you don't have kale chips in your fridge. I know that was really popular for a while. And kale chips, like a little pack of kale chips was like $8, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. That's like 25 calories. But the point of the matter is that we can really keep things super simple. And as we focus on keeping things super simple, it's just a win-win-win-win scenario. It's a win in terms of our budget. It's a win in terms of our health. It's a win in terms of the environment. And also it's a win in terms of the time we're spending in the kitchen preparing these foods.
Right. So yeah, and let's just kind of, cover all the bases. We've talked about grains, legumes, potatoes, fruits and vegetables, but what about nuts and seeds? Those can tend to be more expensive. And with nuts and seeds, we actually like to buy them in bulk. We have a supplier that we like that we get a great deal compared to buying a little package at the grocery store. We
Yeah.
get a big 5-pound bag and it lasts us for a few months.
Well, the thing to point out about nuts and seeds is that they're not staples in our diet because they are high fat, high protein foods that can be a little bit stressful and damaging to the metabolism when eaten in excess. So they're simply not staples. But we do love our flax seeds and our chia seeds for those omega-3s. And yeah, we get a few pound bags from Terrasol, which is a great company that provides organic nuts and seeds and these kind of things.
Right.
But
And in addition, the nuts and seeds, they vary in price quite a bit. For example, sesame seeds and sunflower seeds are much, much less expensive than buying
Hemp
cashews or hemp seeds or walnuts. And so, we always encourage that you try to get as great a variety of these different foods as possible. That's really what's best for the health of your microbiome and your overall health. But if your budget is tight, you can still get those good minerals and essential fatty acids from the sesame seeds rather than.
well, we encourage you to go to the chia and the flax seeds
Yeah,
as
of course.
the top of the top of the list in terms of your nutrient dense
And
healthy fats.
flax is less expensive than chia.
Flax and chia are both pretty darn cheap, especially when you buy them in bulk. So and then sesame and sunflower super cheap. Pumpkin seeds pretty darn cheap. And we like to use these, like we were just talking about, to make some sauces every once in a while, some salad dressings that are seed based. But yeah, seeds and nuts, neither are really a staple in the diet, except for that tablespoon of flax/chia in the smoothie.
Yeah.
So do you want to go over your breakdown? Susanna made an Instagram post, she said, like a year ago.
I did.
Talking about the breakdown of the misconceptions, the large, drastic misconceptions that a lot of people still hold when it comes to plant-based eating and the expense.
Yeah, and I wish you could see these photos. You can kind of see I've got it's too blurry. But anyway, I'll repost this in the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Facebook group so you can all read it.
And then, of course, go and follow Dr. Susanna Alter on Instagram if you don't.
Yeah, but so I had my followers guess how much my dinner cost to prepare. And basically what was in the bowl was cooked quinoa, Yukon Gold potatoes, broccoli, about, a cup of quinoa, a cup of broccoli, a cup of beans, red kidney beans, and then I think I had 3 Yukon potatoes in there, and it was drizzled with this potato-based cheesy sauce that we have in our free recipe book that you can download if you like. But people guessed it was all over the place, and the cost of the dinner
for one or for two?
For one.
For one.
Was $3.50. Which is pretty good.
And I mean, I would guess that the calories in that dinner, we don't like counting calories, by the way. You guys know that. But if we were to count up the calories, it'd probably be something like 700 calories or so, 800.
A substantial meal.
A good substantial meal. If you were to go out to eat at a restaurant, it'd probably be like $15 or something, right? And then you'd probably be kind of skimped on your serving. You'd wish there was more. And the fact of the matter is that this way of eating and preparing food is so inexpensive.
Right.
And you got some data about the standard American budget when it comes to eating.
Yeah. So I'll go on. I actually go through my entire day of eating and I add up how much it all adds up to. And so I typically start with a nourishing smoothie bowl of bananas, frozen mango, frozen wild blueberries, and green powders. And we didn't talk about the frozen fruit, but you can buy frozen mango, frozen pineapple.
It's the way
Again,
to do it.
those are clean 15 foods, so you don't need to buy them
Yeah.
in the organic form.
If you're relying on purely, strictly fresh fruit to sustain you and to provide your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, that's going to add up. But frozen fruit, it's harvested, peak ripeness, and flash frozen. So definitely focus on those frozen fruits and vegetables, especially if you're concerned about the budget stuff.
Right. So the cost of my smoothie I calculated is $3.50. Then for lunch, I was doing this in the wintertime, and a lot of times we like to have an oatmeal bowl for lunch. So oatmeal is so darn cheap, even the good organic stuff. So a bowl of oatmeal with raisins, bananas, and honey drizzled on top, $1.50. Then I'll usually have a snack of a couple pieces of fruit in the afternoon. I think we had apples at that time, so that's about $1. And for dinner, before that big bowl, we also start with a big leafy green salad with some homemade dressing. So that's $1.50 for the salad. And then, we also usually have our fancy mushroom drink or matcha, which would add another, $1 to $1.50, which again isn't necessary, but we enjoy it. And so the total comes to $12.50 a day. And when you actually look up what the average American spends on their food on a daily basis, it's $18.33. So I'm under the average amount that the average American spends a day on food, and I bet you that the nutritional value of what I'm eating far exceeds what the average American is eating on a daily basis. The average American honestly eats out quite a bit, right?
Yeah, $18.33 for a day worth of food. That must include a couple trips to fast food restaurants, because that's pretty low. That's pretty inexpensive when we're talking about junk food. Junk food's expensive. You know what I mean? It's got the word junk in there, which implies low quality, which implies low nutrient density. It's junk, but it still is more expensive than real, wholesome. And that's just mind-boggling to me. And honestly, I'm glad that it's a little bit more expensive. I'm certainly glad that this way of eating is a lower budget compared to the standard American diet. Because if it weren't, then a whole food plant-based diet wouldn't really stand a chance. But like we said, this is a win across the board. There's no sacrificing anything, including taste and including money. You don't have to sacrifice satisfaction or money to eat a healthy, wholesome, whole food, plant-based diet.
Right.
So what else?
I do also want to add that, if you're like us and you enjoy kind of spicing up your whole food plant-based way of eating with these nutritional powders and some of these specialty items like, more seaweeds and,
Seaweed's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there are also tips for getting those for not as much money as well.
Yeah, it's true, because if we just relied on going to Whole Foods for these kind of things,
it would really add up.
It really would add up.
So for our green powder, for example, we don't buy a tiny little tub of pre-mixed green powder from Whole Foods. We buy bulk bags of the single ingredients such as spirulina powder, barley grass juice powder, wheatgrass powder, nettle leaf powder, things like that. We buy it all in bulk. We'll mix it all together in our own kitchen, store it in a big bag in the freezer, and it typically lasts us 4 months or something like that.
Yeah, so we've got 5 pounds of really high nutrient density green powder for what, 50, 60, $70, something like that. Whereas, sometimes you get a half a pound for $30.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even the highest nutrient dense herbs and plants that we actually want.
Right.
So yeah, that's a little hack that we got.
Yeah, same goes for any, we like, our berry powders. Like,
We already went
camo-
over this.
Oh, yeah, we did. But
Yeah.
just buy in bulk. Buy in bulk.
Buy in bulk.
We like Terrasol.
We do, yeah.
Star West
already
Herbs.
went over that.
Oh, you already went over that?
Not Star West. So the places that we do source our bulk foods, primarily Terrasol,
T-E.
Terrasoul, terrasol.com. You can also get their products on Amazon and whatnot. And then Star West Botanicals, that's a great place to get bulk herbs and spices, as well as
spices. We didn't talk about spices.
We didn't talk about spices.
When
but
you buy those little jars,
don't do it.
You get nothing. You get nothing for your money.
Don't do it. So don't buy your little spice jars, because when you're eating this way, when you're eating a whole food plant-based diet that doesn't have oil, recognize that oil is also an expensive food, and rightfully so, because it's 4,000 calories per pound. 4,000 calories per pound. So it should be expensive. So when you're eating this way without oil, without salt, without sugar, without the processed stuff, you're going to want to use the herbs and spices liberally. So we like to get a pound of herbs and spices from a place like Star West Botanicals. Pretty inexpensive. Load it up in a jar, dump it on your food when you're preparing your food, and that's a good way to go as well.
Yeah.
So that seems like we covered a lot.
I think we did. Yes.
Yeah, so if anyone has any thoughts or questions or tips to add, you can feel free to leave that stuff in the comments. We do appreciate you for tuning in. And any other announcements?
No.
Okay. Then we'll see you guys next time on the Alter Your Health podcast.
Bye for now.